Well, a very warm welcome once again to our latest episode of Moments of Grace, this time with a focus on graceful parenting, which is our brand new program here at Grace, all devoted to spirituality and parenting. As I've said in the notice, this will be a group where hopefully our faith informs our parenting, but even maybe our parenting informs our faith. I am absolutely delighted to welcome Christine Donovan to all of you. Christine is going to be giving us, I guess, fuel for us running this program over its first year. I've gotten to know Christine over some phone conversations, and she has agreed to do this recording with me. And excitingly, she is going to be with us on September the 11th to get us rolling and launched. Christine, welcome.
Well, hi, thank you. I am so thrilled with what you're doing at Grace with Graceful Parenting and how you're building a community of parents. And it is an absolute honor to be a small part of it.
Thank you so much. We are thrilled to have you be a part of it. Just a little background, Christine is a PCI certified parent coach. She has been a youth pastor in the past, lecturer, teacher, conference leader. I have seen the website. I could go on for quite a while on the number of things that Christine has done around parenting and leadership in the past, but I think that covers it pretty well, and we are honored to have you with us. So Christine, in our phone conversations, has keyed me into this wonderful paradigm that she has for faith and parenting, all around the threefold let, lift, and listen. And as soon as I heard you kind of lay that out a little bit, Christine, on our phone conversation, I thought this sounds absolutely wonderful. And I am so excited to have this kind of fill out our first year of graceful parenting here at Grace. And so I wonder, as we get started thinking about that, what kind of inspired you along the way to come up with this paradigm of let, lift, and listen?
That's a very good question. And what inspired me was the mounds and mounds of information and research and study involving parenting, the experiences that I had raising my own 8 children, 4 that I birthed, 4 stepchildren. There's so much information out there, and it just seemed overwhelming to me. So as I thought about it, and really it was in a moment of prayer, and I was just asking God to show me what it can't be this overwhelming and confusing. And I very quickly sensed these 3 themes that all parenting experts, all research, my own experience, and as it's laid out in the Bible, all really came down to a simple framework of 3 approaches. And they're let, lift, and listen. So it's simplified everything. Now, parenting is not simple, but it's not that complicated. It's just not easy to put into effect, but it's simple to understand. So that paradigm came from really everything that I've ever learned about parenting.
And it's great, of course, it's got L's at the beginning of them all, so it's going to be easy for us all to remember. Let, lift, listen. I've been rolling it over in my mind over the last few weeks. But I just remember on our phone conversation, as soon as you said let, I started thinking not only in parenting, but our relationship with God, letting, listening, lifting. I got this slightly out of order there. But I've had the privilege of reading your summary and overview of let, lift, and listen. Could you give us an overview, a summary of what we're going to be experiencing over the next year?
Sure, I would love to do that. So let, lift, and listen, what those stand for are letting the consequences do the teaching, lifting our children with honest and sincere appreciation for who they are, and listening to them. Now, to just elaborate on each of those a little bit, the letting the consequences do the teaching means that we don't punish our children. It means that we let logical consequences do the teaching. We, as parents, we sometimes have to put those consequences into effect. Yet we always make sure that they're logically connected to whatever the infraction was, whatever the child was, has done that we want to guide and correct. So we do this by it helps the child to think about the outcome of their actions. And isn't that the way the real world works? When we do certain things, we have reactions to those. And so the letting the consequences do the teaching means that we are not angry at our children. And I'm going to actually add a fourth L here, and it's love. Everything that we do comes in an atmosphere, in a home, in a family of love. So when our child is having a consequence for a behavior, we give it to them with love. And it's logical, it makes sense. Letting the consequences do the teaching. Lifting means that at all times we remember who our child is deep inside, the goodness of our child, who they were created to be. And it doesn't matter if our child is the ultimate leader or the tops in their class, or they're a child that has special needs. They have unique strengths that are only theirs. And as parents, we look for those, and we reach in and we pull them out like golden threads, and we lift our children anytime we can. And it's not just when they're being good, even if they're doing something that they need to change, we can find, oh my gosh, you are so determined at trying to get what you want. It's good to be determined. However, it's not going to get what you want right now. So again, we're lifting our children, and it's not the same as every child gets a trophy or telling our kids they're great about everything when they're not. A child who is on, say, a soccer team, and maybe they sit on the bench, or they really aren't the star of the soccer team, we can still say things like, gosh, at your soccer game today, I love the way you ran as fast as you could after the ball. Or, boy, you are really encouraging. I see how you encourage your friends. And that's true. We only say what's true, and what we focus on grows. So the more that we lift our children, the more that they will grow into their strengths. So that's the lifting. The listening is really a lot of skills that we have to practice to not only really hear who our children are and what they're saying. And this means not just listening with our ears, it means with our eyes, it means with our feelings, listening to their feelings, listening to what they're really trying to communicate. When we listen to our children, it doesn't mean that we agree with them. I don't know about you, but when my child is saying something that I disagree with, or I think is kind of foolish, I always have felt like it's my job to jump in and correct them. And true listening is just listening to them, everything that they have to say, letting them get it out. I can learn a whole lot. After I've listened with an open ear and an open heart, then I have more of a possibility of being able to share some wisdom back. Also, when we learn to listen real well, our children are more open to talking. If we're not correcting, if we're not lecturing, if we really listen, they tend to talk a lot more. And again, we do all of these in an atmosphere of love, acceptance, just empathy for wherever they are. We accept them wherever they are. And our job as parents is to guide them and help them become the best that they can be.
Thank you so much for that. I can say, not only does it still sound exciting, but I think it sounds like hard work as well, which is not a bad thing, not a bad thing whatsoever. But as I think, and as you kind of say, God is our greatest role model in all of these, in letting, and God surely lets us do many, many things, some of them beautiful and wonderful, some of them not so much. God lifts us up, of course, and thank God that God does lift us up. And as we always hear the promise in Scripture, God listens as well. But if any parents are like me out there, I'm thinking, well, how far do I lift? When do I lift and when do I not lift? Is it always lift or listen? And I know we're going to get into all of that, but I wonder, just to maybe help all of us with those questions that are already popping in our minds as we hear this, of any practical examples of what this might actually look like in our parenting.
Absolutely. And before I give you a couple, I want to say that's one of the things I love about what you're doing at Grace is that as coming together, it's amazing how you can help each other come up with ideas. Sometimes when I've been stuck with one of my kids doing or saying something, and I know how what will be the best way to respond, but I just can't do it because I'm emotional. That's when I call up one of my friends and say, hey, do you have any ideas? What's a logical consequence? What would be the most godly way to respond to my child who has just really made me angry, or whatever's happened? So having community is huge. So a couple of examples. I'll start with one, say with a toddler. Now, I work with parents of kids of all ages, from toddlers up to adult children. So let's say you have a toddler who throws a temper tantrum. And the typical reaction is timeout, right? We put our child in their room until they can calm down. Now, the way that I used to do that before I really understood the most effective way to parent was to be angry. You stop having that tantrum. I'm going to put you in your room until you can calm down, and then you can come out. And I would be angry, and it would be a punishment. Well, with let, lift, and listen, what we might do is approach the child who's throwing a temper tantrum, first of all, with that love and compassion. Oh no, this is so sad. We can't behave like this around other people. This is no fun for us, so you can go in and have your tantrum in your room. We'll miss you while you're gone. So just beginning with our tone of voice, it helps us keep this atmosphere of calm and loving peace. However, the child's probably still screaming and yelling, and that's okay. We can scoop the child up, again, keeping this loving tone in our voice, and say, oh gosh, this is so hard. We're really going to miss you. You put them in their room, say, we'll see you when you're ready to be nice. And we walk away. So this is just an example of how you turn a punishment, which would be sending your child to their room, to a logical consequence. As adults, if we start acting rude and loud, we find ourselves alone, right? And hopefully we teach ourselves, if I'm about to lose it, to take a walk, to put myself in timeout. So that's what we're teaching our child. Now, in this situation, you might be able to add that little bit of lift, which is, oh gosh, you're a child that really knows what they want. I get it. So again, we're not saying our child is bad. They know what they want. The listening part of it here, there's not much that the child's going to tell us in this moment. But if you're really listening, we might be, first of all, paying attention to what's going on. After I put my child in their room, I might think, oh gosh, were they angry because they were frustrated? Maybe I need to give them a different type of toy to play with. Did they throw this tantrum because they're hungry? And I was enjoying my time with my friends, and we hadn't put dinner on the table yet. Maybe I need to think more about having snacks for my child. So again, we're applying let, lift, and listen even to that simple situation with a toddler. So let's take it to a teenager. An example with a teenager might be that the child's a 16-year-old and they begged to use the car. And we've said, you may take the car out this evening, be home by 11. So they come pulling into the driveway about 11:45. What does it look like for lift, and listen? It would be welcoming the child at the door with a hug. Oh gosh, we were worried about you. We're so glad you're home. Then a parent might say, wow, we're kind of tired. You're probably tired too. Why don't you go ahead and go to bed? We'll talk about this in the morning. Don't worry about it until then. So this is doing a couple of things. One, it's leaving it for the child to worry about, right? And it's also giving me an opportunity as a parent to be loving and kind. I might actually feel angry inside, and it might not be the best time to have a conversation and be able to lift my child and really listen. So fast forward to the next morning, the child's had all night to think about all the excuses, comes out, starts telling me, oh, well, my friends had to go, I had to give my friends a ride home, and they didn't have a way home, and my phone died. I didn't have a battery to call you. The listen part of this would be that I would just listen to them. Oh yeah, that sounds tough. Might even lift them. Yes, you always have been a really good friend. It's, it is good to make sure that your friends are safe. So I'm not going to argue or tell them they're lying or anything like that, because in this moment, that doesn't really matter. The truth is they came in 45 minutes late. And if they need to charge their phone batteries up, if they need to start leaving earlier so they can give their friends a ride home, that's their responsibility. So I listen to all of this. When I'm done listening, I've lifted by saying, yes, you're a good friend. I might say something like, well, okay, the thing is that I couldn't sleep very well waiting for you. I was ready to go to bed. And so tonight, I know you were planning, you'd asked for the car to go out on this date that you have planned. And I just don't think I'm going to feel comfortable just letting you have the car again. So I think tonight you won't be using the car. Now the child's going to be very upset. I can't believe you're doing that. You know how important this was, a big date. I might say something like, yeah, I get it. You're angry. And it's all right for them to be angry with me. I might say something like, well, I know it's really important. And you know what, your dad and I, we'd be happy to give you a ride. We'll drop you off. We'll pick up your girlfriend. We'll take you home. No problem. You see how this is all playing itself out?
I kept thinking it was like a scene out of 16 Candles where one of the parents handles it well and the other one not so much. And I know which side I would fall on.
Well, I know what side I fell on most of the time. And that's where coming together and talking about these scenarios as a group is so good. And the other thing is when we have a parent fail, which we all have, there's two things about that. One, it gives us an opportunity to apologize and ask for a do-over. So if my child comes in and I've yelled at them for something, for coming in late, I can get up the next morning and say, all those things I said last night, I didn't mean them. I'm sorry. I was emotionally upset. Could I have a redo? And in that case, we're modeling to our child what they should do after they've lost it with us. So it's okay when we have our parent fails. We learn and our children learn. And I also want to say that all of these, as you pointed out, what I love about them is they're exactly as God treats us. God, as a perfect parent, father, mother, feminine, masculine, always welcomes us with love and forgiveness, always. Doesn't mean that we're rescued. And this is where the letting the consequences do the teaching is so important. God doesn't always just come in and make everything better when we go and say, hey, I really messed up. Would you fix this all? No, we have some consequences we have to live out, but he's always there. And we can, when we go, he listens to us, whether we go screaming and yelling, whether we go in tears, even when we ignore him or her, when we come back, always there listening. And God always sees the best in us, created the goodness in us, and always wants to pull that out and raise that up.
Well, I think that's important, as you just underlined there on those both levels of how relational this is, either between us and God or between us and all of the other parents that we're going to be sitting with in that room. And one of our parents said that in the quote they gave, that they're really looking forward to having a community to wrestle with and to work through these things with together. And I think that's going to be a beautiful thing about what we're doing as well, as you've already pointed out.
Yes, and all ages. I hope that parents of all ages of children are going to come together, because the Let, Lift, and Listen it's not a formula, it's a framework. And it's a framework that works in all relationships. And when you have a community coming together, the parents who have older children can maybe help brainstorm and help and talk about experiences for the parents of the younger children. The parents of the younger children can be very creative. And if you're a parent of a teenager and that the police brought your child home for dealing drugs, I mean, this is pretty serious, and we are so emotionally upset by that. that sometimes having other people, other families, no matter what age their children are, help us get clarity on exactly what's going on and what is our best next step. And how can we apply, let, lift, and listen in an atmosphere of love and compassion, regardless of what challenges we find with our children.
Christine, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to, over the next months and year, to putting, for lack of a better term, putting meat on the bones of this framework and fleshing it out and wrestling with it and speaking about it out loud with all of the people who are going to be with us. Very much looking forward to September the 11th. That is going to be the first time that you're going to be with us live and in person at Grace Church Cathedral and Hanahan Hall at that kind of 10 o'clock to 10:50 time. And then just for anybody who's tuning in and listening, our plan is to do let in that session, and then we are going to take it forward for a few months. And then Christine is going to come back around January and take us through lift. And then we're going to take that forward as a group for a few months. And then you're going to come back around springtime and take us through listen. And then we're going to take that forward and just grow together in community as we think about faith and parenting. Christine, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I can't wait to meet with you all in person.
Absolutely. We look forward to seeing you on September the 11th. Until then, everyone take care, and we will see you then.